Welcome, everyone. This is episode 23 of the Snapcast. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a cool show in store, man. There's we're going to be talking about the unplanned, the unscheduled banned and restricted announcement coming up on Monday that will also introduce a change to the companion mechanic. Long overdue. So we're going to be talking about that and some, a whole bunch of other cool stuff that's going on in the community. So,
yeah, man, it's good to be back again.
Sure is, man. It's friggin' hot these days.
It's a little warm.
If you see our faces sheening more than usual, it's because it is about 172 degrees in here. It's
the lights don't help.
Yeah, I know. Lights shining right in your face. Like, we're that, or you could speculate whatever you wanted. Maybe we got back from a tough workout. We're really trying to get in shape. We're doing the right thing.
One of these things doesn't belong here. Yeah, dude. So June 1st, unexpected BNR announcement coming up. If we look at the official language that they tweeted out, on Monday 6/1, there will be an update to the banned and restricted list impacting standard and historic formats. Modern is safe.
Yeah.
Except the last part of the sentence says, banned and restricted list impacting the standard and historic formats that will also address the companion mechanic.
So that's the official tweet. I'm not sure if we can read too much into some of those words. It kind of leads you down the path of like impacting, it says impacting standard and historic formats. It could also impact other formats. They just, you know what I mean?
From past precedent on these announcements, they try and give people an idea of we're going to ban a card in this format. Okay. So when they announced the last one that occurred, they said, we will be making an announcement that will impact Vintage and Legacy. And I think they actually said Vintage, Legacy, and his Brawl. So they said that in the pre-announcement announcement.
Interesting. Okay.
But if they address the companion mechanic,
then it's suddenly not restricted to standard and historic.
Correct. So if they fundamentally change the mechanic, then that change would apply to all formats.
Yeah.
So they may be looking at banning specific cards in standard and historic.
Yep. And
otherwise altering that mechanic, which has ripples to other formats.
Yeah. So for sure, okay, that makes sense. They could just be making bannings in standard and historic, but addressing this companion mechanic.
Number one card you want to see out of standard. Go.
Agent of Treachery. Hands down.
I would say yes. Although I hate Winota, but Winota usually gets Agent of Treachery. So
right.
I'm on board because that hoses the Luca decks, the Winota decks, and just the crazy mana ramp decks that play all haymakers on turn 5 forward.
Yeah, it's so discouraging. Like I played, it was so I was salty the other day playing Arena. All right, I was salty, but it was a lighthearted salty that someone has done this to me before, and it significantly changed my play style on Arena. All right, so there was some thought behind me being salty, but this is what happened. I played against this Yorion control-y deck that literally basically had no win condition other than
taking your
shit with Agent of Treachery. If I didn't play anything, you know what I mean?
They
couldn't win. You know what I mean? It was so weird. And he had so many Agent of Treacheries on the board at one point. He just started drawing so many cards. So I got this feeling in my stomach. I'm like, sweet, I could just win with him decking himself because I can take a few hits from these Agents of Treacheries. I don't care. You know what I mean? He's stolen so much of my stuff. He was drawing 3 cards, and you can't. It's not a may ability. It's a must.
And that's another one of those cards. Like we joked a few episodes ago, what's every line of text on Questing Beast? But nobody thinks about Agent of Treachery's other line of text, which is if you control 3 or more permanents that didn't belong to you, draw 3 cards.
Yeah, and in turn, draw 3 cards. Well, this guy was literally, he had 8 cards in his library, and he had 3 Agent of Treacheries out, and I was just like, yeah. So I win, right? And like this game, mind you, had gone on for 45 minutes. Nikki was getting pissed at me because I said, yep, I'm just going to finish this one game and then we'll go out and watch a movie. This game, and this is best of one. I do not play best of three. This is best of one. And it went on for 45 minutes. So towards the end of this, then when I could finally see like what he's trying to do, I just literally stopped playing spells. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to randomly hit you with something every once in a while. And sure as shit, this guy draws his entire deck out just about. And then he plays some dumbass card that's like, target player shuffles their graveyard into their library, draw a card.
This sounds like a Stover deck.
He literally did that 3 or 4 times in the course of this game to himself before he dealt me the 20 some odd damage that he had to deal me, like in 45 minutes. So what I did when the game was definitely over and he was definitely going to beat me, I had about 4 timeouts built up, like, you know, and I was just like, yeah, well, you know what? Like, if you want to play a deck that the games take this friggin' long, yeah, I roped him. Like if you do it enough, it'll kick you. So what I did is after a couple of ropes, I would move phases and then let a couple more ropes go by. It was about an extra 5 minutes of waiting at least. But I was like, I'm not doing this.
A lighthearted salty.
It was a lighthearted salty. It was like I still said good game to him, but like, you know, I don't call it a bad level of salty. It's like that. Have you ever seen that computer simulation playing what is it, Super Mario World 3 or whatnot, or maybe even
no.
Either way, there's this computer simulation that tries to learn how to play Mario, and you know what I mean. Every once in a while, it will find itself in a spot where it's going to die, and like there's nothing it can do. So the what it does is just pause the game because it's programmed to don't lose. Like, you know what I mean? So the only way that it can not lose is to not play. Like, you know what I mean?
Hey, I do that on a billiards table all the time.
Oh, yeah?
There's no shot for me, but I'm gonna park this cue ball right in that corner as far away from your next ball as possible.
Exactly. Like, you know, and part of me thought, I was like, okay, if this guy has any sort of life, my girlfriend's mad at me at this point. I'm like, you've already done some damage by making this a 45-minute game. What's another 5 minutes to show you that I'm frustrated? But it's like, to bring it back to what I was saying, I played a deck like that once, like, you know, long before I started streaming, and someone did that to me. They were just like, good game. Like, you've got me, but like, look,
I'm going to make you sit here and wait.
Yeah. Like this is how I feel after this game. And I'm like, that's kind of a good point. I was like, I know that this guy isn't a bad dude. He's just extremely upset and wants me to see.
Right, because there's no other way to communicate with your opponent.
Right,
in
like,
arena.
He wants me to see, like, is it worth taking this friggin' long to win a game in this absolute stupid way? Like, that was kind of the message that I got. And I was like, I mean, granted, I wasn't happy about it. I probably laughed at him and was like, salty, I got there. But like, even when I did, I had this feeling like, haha, like I did it. You know what I mean? With this stupid deck that, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I felt even as a winner when I was in that spot. And I was like, I understand your frustration. So like, I kind of, I paid it forward with this guy. I'm like, this is an absolutely shitty, excuse my language. This is an absolutely terrible way to play Magic. Like, don't play like this. This is miserable for, I can imagine both people involved. Like, who wants to win a best of one game and take 45 minutes playing it?
Oh, best of one.
Best of one.
I don't know why you do that to yourself, unless you were training for an upcoming tournament, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
You want to talk about just playing games of Magic that you absolutely hate? Try playing one-on-one EDH with this guy playing Golos. It didn't take 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
When on like turn 4, he's played so many mana rocks that he can play Golos and activate it and then put 3 cards into play for free. You just want to die.
Man, I didn't know the deck was that good. I just tested it against my other dual commander decks, which are meant for one-on-one, and they just wrecked it.
And you're like, I built a Picard deck. I built it for fun. This is my fun multiplayer. Let's test it out by playing one-on-one. Perhaps
I'll test it out, or maybe edit it a few more times before I bring it to Picard household to play it, but
well, again, there's that difference between 4 people and just playing it heads up.
That's true. That's true.
But back to this BNR announcement and potential change to the companion mechanic. You said Agent of Treachery?
Yep, absolutely. I think that would be a good call.
I'm going to go with another crowd favorite, the Jeff Hoogland pick for card that should GTFO standard and not be seen ever again. 3 fairy.
T3 fairy.
T3 fairy. It's just 3 fairy. Doesn't let your opponent interact. I'm playing an aggro deck that I have a protection spell to protect against the Wrath, but as soon as he plays Teferi, you either do it in response and you just blow your trick and he bounces your indestructible creature. Like, it just negates any interactive gameplay.
Yeah. It's insane, dude. Yeah. I don't know though.
I'm not saying I don't think that they will.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Teferi, and I mean Jeff Hoogland. He has his opinion, and I'm sure it's miserable for him playing that on stream when he has interactions and stuff. I don't feel like it's a too overpowered card. You know what I mean? There's been plenty of games where if you've watched some of the streams, like they slam it to Teferi and we're like, we don't care. Like, you have a lot to deal with on this board. You're gonna bounce my 1-drop things from Luris, like. My 1-drops and 2-drops,
right,
that's
but
fine.
You're playing one particular deck and saying, doesn't matter to me, bro, do your thing.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
You're talking about all the other decks in the format.
That's true. It sort of leads to like a Jace race back in the day. Like, which control deck can slam Teferi first and win the game, basically. You know what I mean? As soon as I get Teferi down, you can't interact with anything that I do, which is the whole point of your deck. Yeah.
And I mean, anybody from our LGS that follows the Game Citadel Facebook group knows I'm probably on there twice a week bitching about Arena. And I think my last Arena bitch session was, how the hell is it in an 80-card deck do these bastards have 3 fairy on turn 3 and shatter this guy on turn 4, which they play on my turn?
Yeah, and it's bad, man. There's so much scry and card draw in those decks too, but still they're like 80 cards, and you'd figure that would hurt the consistency some, but
it doesn't.
Yeah, it's just,
and then I have some smart ass like Charlie Hockinen who probably doesn't listen to our podcast, so and he's like, well, I got on the geometric hypercalculator, and the odds of doing that if you mulligan once are actually 63%. Hi, Charlie. Looking forward to having you live here for 5 months, you rotten bastard. Yeah. So, historic? Like, so have you played any historic on Arena?
Dude, I have not. I have not played it.
I've been playing it a little bit this week. Yeah. It's really fun.
Wow, man. So what decks are good in historic? Like, what do you see when you play that on Arena?
I've run into a lot of Gruul on Arena. I've run into a little bit of Winota on Arena. There are some Luris decks. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. There's mono red. And when you're playing, so the 2 decks that I've been working to build in historic are Esper Humans, because you actually get to play Thalia Guardian of Thraben on Arena.
Oh, man.
And Kite Sail Freebooter into Meddling Mage.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it definitely gives you hope that eventually Arena will be the one platform for all online Magic.
It gives you hope as a humans player.
Well, it shows that the client is capable if they program the cards.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying.
That's true. A very good point, which I think at some point, like, they can do it.
Yeah.
Like, they definitely can do it. And once you have the groundwork laid down for making these mechanics, maybe even making animations, like, or doing whatever
it is.
Once you get that down to clockwork, it won't be hard for them to take a couple years.
Well, and so historic is sort of on the radar because they just released a whole new anthology. If you pony up the bucks and buy the anthology collection, you get 4 copies of every card that they put into historic without having to use wild cards.
What?
Yeah. So if you go into the shop on Arena and buy the historic anthology collections, you get 4 copies of each card. Wow. And so you can start playing reasonable historic decks with with that and
wow,
cards that you had left over from recent standards.
Dude, that's solid, man.
It is so weird though.
Wow.
And I actually listened to another podcast talk about this last week, that Wizards wants to maintain a totally another format. So we have Legacy, Vintage, Modern, Pioneer, and then the Arena non-rotating format, Historic, in which we're just going to pick and choose which cards are legal.
Yeah.
There's no date set. There's no from this block forward. It's we're going to put whatever we want into it.
Right. We're just pumping cards into it, willy-nilly. Yeah. Which is interesting. That seems like an interesting format, man. I've never played it. Like I said,
I mean, it's high power Magic on Arena.
So you've seen humans there. You've seen is there any discouraging decks that you run up against? You're like, yeah, this is just terrible, and something's busted here. Give us some insight on what could be coming.
Field of the Dead is legal in Historic.
No way.
Yeah, and so I have as trying to play humans or mono white life in Historic against a field deck is awful. You're basically like trying to bring in Shadow Spear so that you have trample.
Wow.
Or protection spells to try and get through with one dude.
Wow.
And you still have control decks. I mean, where we have the Goldfish metagame up for Historic, and they're saying the most played deck is actually a Gruul mid-range deck, which you get Llanowar Elves, Pelt Collector, Burning Tree Emissary, Zertal Goblin, Bone Crusher Giant, Spellbreaker, Questing Beast, and Embercleave.
Huh.
Man, you can really run somebody down playing Llanowar Elves in a Gruul aggro deck.
Wow, dude. Zertal Goblins? All right, just check.
Yes, that's the 2/2 for 2 with Riot, so it can come in either as a 2/2 haster or as a 3/3.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. And Gruul Spellbreaker. This is the card we were talking about. We said spec on a few weeks back now.
Yeah.
Card is sick, man.
Well, and it's the same thing, right? So that's the 3/3 for 3. That can be a 4/4 or a have haste, and it has hexproof on your turn.
Wow.
Everything that's been printed in the last few years is so friggin' busted.
Yeah, friggin'
the novel that is Questing Beast.
Wow.
So when you look at this, though, this doesn't look drastically different than a standard deck.
Yeah.
Except Pelt Collector, Llanowar Elves.
Well, there's some standard decks with Pelt Collector in them.
That's true. Pelt Collector is still in until the next rotation.
Yeah.
But Burning Tree Emissary is the key to has historically, pun intended, been the key to a lot of Naya aggro decks that want to go drop, drop, drop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a crucial component of it.
Yeah.
Especially when you mix the whackers in play there. Goblin Bushwhacker and what's the other one?
Reckless Bushwhacker.
Yes, the Surge one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's interesting, man. So do you think they could potentially ban Field of the Dead in Historic?
Ooh. That card is just so busted. But I honestly, people talk about how Brainstorm defines Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Field of the Dead, that's the only format that Field of the Dead is legal in.
It's kind of true, actually.
And you notice it's not at the top of this. It's not at the top of their metagame.
Yeah, it's kind of true. They just have that Gruul mid-range deck, which is top of the metagame. Mono Blue Tempo is next. Mono White Life Gain.
Yeah.
Which is the one you built,
yep.
I think you were saying.
Yeah, I was a couple of rares short on that one, and I'm trying to hold them up because I don't know yet what I'm going to play on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, dude. Big. Before we move on to that, do we kind of want to finish up about the ban and restricted?
Yeah. So we're talking about they might ban something in standard, they're probably going to ban something in standard, they're going to ban something in historic.
Yep.
If you have an opinion, if you have an idea on what you think might be banned, put it in the comments. We'd love to talk about it, and we'll bring it up next week. We'll give you a shout out.
Let us know the card you think should be banned from standard or historic. But the other part of this ban and restricted announcement, I really wanted to talk about because we got some ideas.
You had an idea that I have not heard from anybody, and there have been a lot of ideas posited around this potential change to the companion mechanic.
Yes. Like the companion mechanic was the second part of this ban and restricted announcement that they alluded to. And there's now been a ton of speculation on what the hell is going to happen and how it's going to change, right? Now, I will say this with a caveat. Wizards has been known to listen to a specific streamer and almost take his...
You think so?
Yeah, almost take his advice word for word sometimes. Now I'm going to forget the example that I had from earlier. I should have wrote this down. But either way, they listened almost directly to Jim Davis with another banning that they did or another
That's
change.
That's interesting. I thought you were going to talk about Sam Black, but continue.
No, well, I guess... Yeah, Sam Black too. But everything that I've ever seen Jim Davis suggest has come to light in like the Magic community for like changes and bannings and stuff. So I'll say this with a caveat that our idea probably won't happen just because Jim Davis's idea is pretty sweet, and we'll get to what it is in a second.
Can we do the tease thing again? Let's talk about some of the other ideas before we talk about our idea.
All right, we could do that. All right, so our idea, I think, is the best. If they do this, I think it's gonna fix the companion mechanic all around. But you're still gonna be able to play a companion and feel good about it. Like it's still gonna feel powerful having a companion, but it's gonna come with an additional restriction that like I think it's gonna solve it. And yeah. you shall see.
And I do agree. I think that this idea is, again, the most unique and probably the most easy to implement and has the most interesting repercussions because most of the other alterations to this mechanic involve just how many cards you draw.
Right. That's what it is to a lot of people. They start looking at it like it's an extra card. It's been talked about that for so long.
It's an 8th card in your opening hand.
So a lot of the people that are talking about altering this mechanic have that in mind. Yeah. I can tell you, we don't. We have an additional answer that may fix it all. And please, 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 Wizards, listen to this podcast and make this a thing.
Love that.
Change
the
this.
Ambition, the gonads on you.
That's
sir.
Right. But let's talk about some of the other stuff that people are suggesting. So first of all, we talked about Jim Davis and what he suggested. He mentioned this a month ago and how to fix this. But he had suggested that if you are playing a companion, then it's announced before the game, so before mulligans, all of this stuff. But when you draw your hand size, you draw one less. You can only draw up to 6. Once you're done with that mulligan, then you may put your companion in your hand. That's what he suggested. The last part of that, he said, was sort of a caveat that he doesn't necessarily care if it happens that way, with putting it into your hand. He just cared about the card advantage by the looks of it.
Yeah. It's funny because they have the same thing here twice. I don't see anything different between this.
No.
We're looking at an article on MTG Arena Zone, mtgazone.com, where they're talking about these things. And we're using this as a reference because they've collated a lot of the stuff that we've seen on other sites, things that people have posted on Twitter, that sort of thing.
They have some good content on here. This is the first time I've ever heard of this site. And when I literally, before this podcast, I had to look to see if my buddy was just speculating on this band and mechanic, this companion mechanic being changed. I was like, is that just you speculating or does it actually happen? I had to verify, and this is the site that I ran into. They got a ton of good content, man.
Yeah. They reference articles by Sam Black calling companion the worst mechanic for the health of the Magic since Phyrexian mana. We have talked about, when we had Jason on the cast, we talked about Saffron's video about comparing the companion mechanic to some of the worst mechanics in the game.
So they mentioned that. They reference a whole bunch of stuff, and
what's another way that people have already suggested changing the mechanic?
Well, so the one that I liked the most, I liked it because it was sort of along the lines of how we were thinking, which is outside the box, right? Like just don't think about card advantage for a second. Matt Sperling had suggested that companions would cripple sideboards.
Replace your sideboard.
Replace your entire sideboard. So you can still have your card advantage in your games, but you would not be able to change your deck to what your opponent was playing, which I really like that idea too.
It is unique, but as they note here, a lot of people, yourself included, I'm loath to say, are playing best of one.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And this doesn't really impact best of one play.
Doesn't impact it at all. And also, I mean, it does affect all formats, which I think is a way that they have to start thinking about this. Like they would be making a serious mistake, I think, if they changed this into a narrow scope for standard only. Like they really need to think about this in general, because it has changed Magic. I mean, hands down, completely.
Now this is funny because you asked Jason Alt when he was on if his opinions on the companion mechanic had changed at all.
Yeah.
And the first few weeks that you and I talked about it here on the cast, you were definitely like, this could be an evergreen thing. You know, if they just print more of them, then the power of each one gets weakened.
Right.
Has your opinion changed now that you've been playing more Arena?
It hasn't changed. I think that I still stand by that. Like, I mean, mainly because it's something that they can never test, right? Like, it's one of those things where I guess I'm always going to be sitting pretty with like a what if they did that instead, because it's clear at this point they're not going to do that. Like, they might have admitted defeat with this companion mechanic, but I had also said in one of the podcasts, I said they either need to accept it with wide open arms or get rid of it and nerf it right now. You know what I mean? Because those are really the options that they have. They chose the latter, it looks like. But.
So before we get to ours, one other potential fix for the mechanic, and one of the things, we probably haven't said this out clearly, but most of you probably know, when you look at a card with companion, it doesn't have the rules text for the companion mechanic on it. It just has the keyword.
Yeah. So changing that doesn't actually require reprinting cards, or isn't difficult to understand. It isn't like someone, Jim Davis had a perfect example for this, like in his video where he talked about a potential change to it. He said, think about Oko, Thief of Crowns. Sure, they could have just eroded it to be like, all right, +1, -1, -5. Which is how the card should have been designed, to be fair. If it was designed like that, it wouldn't be banned right now. Mark my words, would not be banned if it was +1, -1.
Every person that opens up one of those or trades for one of those or finds one of those for the rest of eternity is going to look at it printed the way it was printed.
Yeah, and there's millions of them out there, like, that are, +2, +1. You don't have to, so changing that and eroding that is impossible. Like, you just can't do it. But eroding a rule or a mechanic, especially, they might have done this purposely by not explaining the mechanic on a lot of the cards, because it's easiest to change those types of things.
You give yourself more outs later.
Exactly. So without further ado, there were some others that were brought up. They all came down to basically card advantage, like getting rid of cards in your hand.
You start with one less card, or you put one card on the bottom after you draw.
Exactly.
It also would make these companions vulnerable to hand disruption, which I think is a reasonable way to attack it, which is to say, you can't have a card in this safe zone. But what if you did have that card in that safe zone? What if you really were playing with a command zone card?
Yeah.
How do we make that?
So here's our suggestion, right? This is
Mike.
I had posited this to Brad, and
I'm on board.
He was like, "Wow, I've never heard anyone talk about it like that, and that seems like a decent idea." I'm curious to know what you guys think, but hear me out. Instead of altering the number of cards that you have in your hand or the cards that you can have outside of the game, instead they make things super simple.
Mm-hmm.
And introduce color identity to all formats. So instead of color identity only being a thing in Commander, if you are running a companion, your deck must follow that companion's color identity.
Boom. I would drop these mics, but I don't own them. So if you want to run Luris as a companion, you have the companion restriction of your starting deck can only contain permanents that cost 2 or less. But we would add the caveat that you can only play cards that match the color identity of your companion.
Right. And in the very broad sense, think of like Commander, the mana symbols that are inside other cards too. Like, this kind of opens the door so that, you know, busted artifacts can't be thrown into these decks later on, or it's easy to understand because everybody plays Commander and everybody knows about color identity.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it has the ability to fix a lot of these things. So I know what you might be thinking. Like an initial knee-jerk response that I got when I was talking to my other buddy about this is that, that doesn't really change some decks that are out there right now, which is true. Like if you look at Obosh decks, like it
which is a prime example.
It probably will not change those much. However, it also begs the question, are Obosh decks really that good, or are they just the most aggressive must-play deck right now? You know what I mean? Like, do they get better or worse if that is the restriction for your companion? You know what I mean? Sure, that deck doesn't get affected much, but it will likely still have to change because the metagame will change.
And it does. So I immediately, thinking about this idea, I went to the Yorion decks. Yorion decks, by and large right now, are blue-white control decks that get to play a bunch of removal and a combo finish in their red cards.
Yeah.
So as a mid-range / aggressive player, I've been playing the Lurus Knights deck on Arena in my standard ranked. Hit Mythic, by the way. Whoop, whoop.
That was awesome, man. First person that I've known so closely to see him hit Mythic. I'm so proud of you, man.
Thanks, bud. You're going to be there in a minute.
We're hoping to follow suit by next season at least. This season's almost over, by the way, like for Arena.
But playing against those Yorion decks and having them be able to just go, okay, hold you off a turn, play Luca, sack my 0-4 wall, get an Agent of Treachery, take my Lurus, or take one of my 3 lands, and then wrath the board the next turn, and then they get another.
Well, it's one of the most discouraging things about playing against a Yorion deck currently is wondering what version am I playing against. You know what I mean? Like it should be like if Wizards, and again, please watch this podcast and at least consider this.
Are we going to name this podcast Wizards Watch This Podcast?
Wizards, please watch this podcast. Yes. Wizards, please watch this podcast regarding companion mechanic.
Wizards, watch this podcast. We fixed companion.
Yes. So if they did that, right, and they introduced color identity to all formats where if you have a companion, then it must follow the color identity, much like in Commander. Then these Yorion decks wouldn't be so esoteric. Like they wouldn't be so...
It could be one of 4 things. It would be...
It's like you're playing blue-white Yorion. I know that for a fact. I know that I'm not going to get surprised by Fires of Invention. Like, I'm not going to get controlled and then like, blam. It's bad
You're
enough.
You're not going to play 4 Omen of the Forge and then blink 4 Omen of the Forge on me.
Right. Well, it's not... I was just going there. I'm so glad you brought that up because as if they didn't have enough flashcards already for you to worry about. Like now it just says, okay, you don't have Omen of the Forge. Like, you know what I mean? You aren't going to surprise me with that because I have made some calculations and I know no matter what I'm doing, I have to get an early start. So what do I have to worry about? It's no longer, it's either 2 damage or 2 creatures. It's like, it has to be the Omen of the White Omen. Yeah. You know what I mean? It has to be that.
Okay, so you're going to make out 2 1/1s and gain 2 life. How do I play around that?
Exactly. Like, there's no more, like, keep you guessing until I surprise you with a frickin' Luca or, Fires of Invention, turn 4 Fires, turn 5 Luca. Like, come on, man. You know what I mean? It's that type of stuff that really makes it discouraging to play against.
One of the keys, fundamentals to playing Magic is sort of knowing your role in a game, and you play against a deck based on your understanding of their archetype. So you can look at a game and so the know your role thing is saying, am I controlling or am I aggressive?
Right.
But then you also factor in what archetype are you playing against? Are you playing against an aggro deck or a control deck or a combo deck? And with the Jeskai Yorion, I feel like you're playing against a control deck with a combo finish.
Yeah. Like, so in case anyone isn't familiar, they either they basically just slam Fires of Invention because it helps them cast their Yorion, or it can help them cast Luca, which they sack one of their,
token creatures.
One of their tokens that they get from
Birth Emeritus or their...
Exactly, Birth Emeritus or something else. And they just go get Agent of Treachery, and they take, much like the game we were just talking about, that I was like, all right, I'm going to be salty here. Like, they just take the stuff that you have, or they take your lands so that you can't play anything. It makes the game really miserable to play.
Yeah, and not being able to get your stuff back when you kill the creature is a weird feeling for a control magic in the modern era. Like, you're used to, okay, they took my thing, but if I kill the creature, I get it back? No.
Well, you see, I'm completely okay with these control decks and these Urion decks playing Agent of Treachery as long as they don't play Luca. Like, as long as you just,
As long as you get to 7 mana real deal, which you're a control deck. That's what you're supposed to be able to do.
And it's a pretty big bomb. Like, you know what I mean? You take whatever they
swing
have.
The game.
Exactly. So, but either way, the big suggestion that we're hoping that Wizards hears by Monday is please consider that, like, adding color identity to all formats, where if you have a companion, you have introduced color identity into your deck as well, on top of whatever restriction the companion has. So that now, if you think about it, that makes it so all Lurrus decks have to be black and white, or black or white.
Yeah.
Like, they have to have that color identity. That makes it so that modern burn decks can't just slam Lurrus in their sideboard just because there's no point in not doing it. Another knee-jerk response that this was my own personal knee-jerk response when I was like, oh, it won't change that. I don't think it really matters, though. And that is this. Gigantha. Like, it won't change much about the Gigantha decks, in modern.
Because it's a 5-color.
Yeah, like, it won't change that addition to Tron or humans in modern.
Yep.
No doubt, right? But as a humans player, this is why I wanted to save this for you. Is it really that busted and really that good to have Gigantha in your sideboard? Like, I feel like I'm not really worried about that. I mean, it's good. It's powerful.
It's interesting. I'm not going to put one in my deck for Monday.
Right. Like, it's not overpowered, and it's not something that is, like, outside the realm of what these decks do anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think we're going to see a Gigantha banning on Monday. I don't think we're going to see a Karuga banning on Monday, even though somebody just shipped me a EDH list with 3 commanders because they had 2 partners and a Karuga. If you're listening, you know who I'm talking about.
But you know what this would also fix, though? Like, what is the big concern that Wizards had as soon as they printed the mechanic? They literally messaged the people at MTG Commander and said, hey, by the way, we're printing Lutri, the Spell Chaser. You might want to ban it. If color identity was now defined as a requirement of your companion, right? Like, the whole deck has to also fit the color identity of your companion. That would not be an issue.
Because every Izzet deck is a spell-based deck would play that for free.
Oh, for sure. But then other decks would have other companions. Like, that's sure. If you're playing a specific Izzet deck that, then great. But, like, it's suddenly not any deck that runs blue or red. It doesn't, I'm not saying it completely fixes that card per se.
Yeah.
Possibly that still deserves a ban, but it just makes it so that it's a little more restricted, because you can't run this in like a Jeskai deck, Jeskai spells, control-y sort of deck, and have that guy there. It now strictly has to be blue-red. So it's like, great, yes, those blue-red decks will still have an extra card. But again, if the meta game adapts around that, and it's like, okay, that's fine. We know those decks are out there, and inherently by playing it, they get an extra card. I draw your attention back to Jim Davis's video, where he talks about opportunity costs, a term that we talk about a lot. And the opportunity cost that he talked about is very, very interesting. He said, the question isn't whether or not I, should design my deck around this companion and sacrifice the deck building ability for this companion. It's more of, can I afford to not play a companion and give up an extra card when I build the deck? Which, if they introduce color identity, I think it directly combats that style of thinking. Because you're still going to have that problem if you exile a card from your hand. You're still going to have slight card advantage because you always know what one of the cards that's going to be in your hand.
Right, so you can plan your game plan around having that 3-drop or 5-drop or whatever it is.
Exactly. But if you add color identity to it and keep that in mind for the rest of the companions that you ever design, if you design more, it's consistent and it fixes a lot of the busted stuff that's in standard, commander, modern. Like even the creature toolbox decks in modern.
Yeah.
Okay, you can no longer run Lurrus because you have to run green. Like, it's just fixes a lot of stuff.
I'm in. I don't think that WotC's going to listen to this podcast before Monday. I'm sure that whatever their decisions are, they've already been made.
Oh, for sure.
But I think that this is one of the most creative ways to solve the companion problem. And it's so on flavor. This is the other thing I really want to give you credit for.
Thank you.
They have announced that this year is the year of Commander. They are releasing a whole Commander-themed draft set in the last quarter of the year. Commander Legends. They're releasing the Commander Spellbook Green, whatever that's going to be called. They announced Companion to say we want to introduce something like a Commander
to all formats. Yeah.
This is the flavor win fix.
So if this video does get to some people at Wizards that have some influence, and can you acknowledge us and just let us know in the comments? Be like, I heard this, great idea, bad idea, here's why.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. I mean, you're not going to offend me. This is just an idea from two people that drink sanitary beverages on their podcast each week and think of crazy stuff like this. It's just something, I'm happy you said that. So thank you. Like being on flavor with what they're trying to do. I didn't even think of that. Like it's on flavor. It's easily understood by people was the big thing that, just say, all right, all decks now, if you have companion, you have color identity. And it's just, it doesn't require any reprints, any word changes, any complicated thinking. It's just everybody plays Commander. Everybody knows that. Introduce that idea and see what it does. By the very least, right? By the very least, it doesn't work. And you can still just change the mechanics.
You can still just ban a card.
You can still ban a card, or you can just go back and change it again. Yep. Just be like, all right, we tried that. It doesn't necessarily work. Runs into these problems, so we're going to do this. But I full-heartedly believe if you change it like that, granted, some people will say, what about? They're
going to say that about everything.
They're going to say it about everything. Just think about it. Like, it will seriously change the way the companion mechanic works for the better. And that's all I got to say about that.
We were excited last week talking about Double Masters. It's like double your flavor, double your fun with Double Mint Masters. But seriously, from our perspective, talking about card values and stuff, over the next few months, let me outline what's coming to you or to stores, which are opening soon.
Yeah, our LGS opening Monday.
In June, Core Set 2021. Guess what happens Monday? We're in June.
Yeah.
So we're only a few weeks away from Core Set 2021. We will also in June get the Chandra Signature Spellbook. Which...
Oh, Chandra Tortured Defiance being reprinted, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In July...
El Chandra.
Jumpstart. The Keyforge ripoff that is...
What?
Take 2 packages of cards and mash them together and play a game.
That's a month away?
That's in July. Yeah, so basically
a month
5-6 weeks away.
Wow.
With 500 reprints in it.
Wow.
And then in August, Double Masters with 350 reprints. Then later in the summer, the Secret Lair Super Drops, which were announced, which have you seen those, dude?
No.
Oh man, the tattoo art pithing needle.
What?
I want so bad. It's the one that I really want out of these. I'll show it to you later.
See if we can bring this up. Yeah, we'll bring up a picture here.
All right, hold on. We'll do this right now. We can get your immediate reaction.
Okay.
Secret Lair.
Brad thinks that my reactions are worthy of capturing on camera here.
I do.
We're not going to give him what he wants.
Dude. He's not a fan.
Damn.
You can just shut your mouth, sir.
No, it's not bad.
There's a whole series of these in this sort of like classic tattoo art style.
Really?
Yeah. And they're all playable cards.
Wow. I should say this. If you're a fan of tattoo art, a certain style of it, this will look really good.
So I'm focusing on the product. In September, so we've gone June, July, August is Double Masters. At some point, Secret Lair drops come out. September is the upcoming Zendikar set. November, some point, the Commander Legends set, which also has a bunch of reprints.
Wow.
And then along with the core set, there are going to be more Commander decks. Along with the Zendikar set, there will be more Commander decks. It's nearly June. We only have 6 months left in the year, and we're talking about, the Commander Collection Green, which is sort of like a green spellbook series just for Commander. So green Commander cards, Signature Spellbook Chandra, Commander Legends, Zendikar, Secret Lair drops, Double Masters, Jumpstart, Core Set 2021. There's like 8 products coming in the next 6 months.
Wow.
And a lot of them are premium products.
God, man, that's so good. I'm amped up about this Commander Legends thing, man. That's going to be sweet.
So what cards can I tell you that I think you should buy right now? Wait 6 months.
Yeah, right.
See what gets reprinted.
Yeah.
The only card that I would say, other than that, now having said that, I'm going to tell you that there is a card that I have for Snap This Up.
So here it is. The Snap This Up segment. Brad, what have you got?
Icon of Ancestry.
All right, so we're looking at this. I've never heard of this card.
No? So this is a 3-mana Lord. Sort of.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I've seen this card before.
This was just printed in M20. So, and that's why I feel like it might not get reprinted, because this is sort of an unimportant rare from M20.
Wow. How much is this worth right now?
Not much.
Like the regular rare, if I was like, yeah, I just definitely need this for Commander. I saw something about $150. Was that fake news on the other side?
No, that sounds right, because I was looking at the foils, of course.
Oh, yeah. So you can get a regular card like this for $150. You can get your foils.
So if you got a pre-release card for $250.
What?
Let's look at the pack foil.
As low as $2 on that pre-release. So
this is one that I want to use as an example to call your attention to mtgstocks.com.
You're full of these good resources, Brad.
Thanks, man.
First it was EDH Rec. First it was EDH Rec. I now use that all the time. Like I now, they almost have too much data on there where it's like you can get lost in it. You could be like, oh, well, what about this? And let's follow this rabbit hole. So what is MTG Stocks? So
MTG Stocks tracks price changes on Magic cards. And they look at TCG Player and other big name sellers to see what cards are actually selling for. And they track the trends of change. Now, there's a stock ticker across the top, which is fun. That's what I just saw. This is so cool. There's a stock ticker that goes across the top, like in stock markets, and it'll show you big cards and like big leaps in those jumps. Cards. Wow, that's so cool. Oracle Moldiah up 14.5%. That's a $45 card now. I don't want to talk about it. Wow. But what I noticed when I came across Icon of Ancestry is this was a little higher, and then it dropped, and then it dropped, and then it dropped. And then at some point in March or April, it just slowly started creeping back up. Oh, yeah. And I've said this before on other cards. When you see cards that are not played in Standard and the price is not going down, that means it's getting played somewhere. Yeah, you got to show that graphic. That is really cool, man. Yeah. For anyone who's watching on YouTube, and if you're not, this could be an incentive to check it out here. He's going to show the graphic. It's basically just that chart, exactly what he explained, which is just the slow decline in the card and a slight, as of recently, a slight increase. The all-time low was $1.03 on March 22nd.
Wow.
So if I try and like cut this down to just the last little bit, you can see that climb from the all-time low, March 22nd, $1.03.
What's that other line there? Is that average and market?
So there is an average sale price, market sale price. You can look at peaks.
Wow.
You can look at the foil graph and compare the two.
Wow.
And you can take them away.
God, that's so cool.
It's just a great.
Where was this 2 weeks ago when we were looking at previous prices of cards? That this would be a good place to just do that, man.
Yeah, to go back to a certain date and say, okay, what was it on? Well, and they don't. It looks like they get them every day, but I feel like maybe they don't. Although it does look like it.
Yeah,
you can go back to any particular day and see what the price was.
Yeah. Dude, that's huge, man.
Icon of Ancestry. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1. So this is a 3-mana colorless artifact that is a lord.
People play 3-mana lords regardless in Commander.
No, you can swing with most of those.
True.
But this also has a mana sink. And that's why I think that this card really has legs for a long time. 3-mana tap. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Reveal a creature card of the chosen type. From among them, put it into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you're playing a creature tribal deck in Commander, there's nothing worse than having a bunch of mana and no dudes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because if you get Wrath or something like this helps you recover from that. It's a lord that helps you recover. That's really cool, man.
And so I guess
it's also very Commander-minded, which is a good way to invest in cards.
Right. You're not getting, as much as I want to have a theory about we're going back to playing Paper Magic here in the near future. Like our shop is opening back up. We may be able to play Modern on Monday and I'm excited about that. Is the world at large going back to playing Paper Magic? And if they are, is it Standard, which is a quick price mover? Maybe not. I don't think anybody's going to show up to a Standard event at our shop on Friday next week. Pioneer, maybe. But I also think, and I have a theory about this, that Pioneer sort of got, I won't say killed in the cradle, but growth stunted by this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because it was climbing fast where people were excited about it, and then nobody could play. And so are people going to come out of quarantine with their Pioneer decks ready to go, or are they going to come back with Modern decks?
Right.
Like
good point.
I don't know.
Good point. Or maybe even Commander decks, because that's what people were playing in quarantine. I played more Commander face-to-face in quarantine than I've played, any other format. That's for sure. But yeah, people are playing that. They can play that in quarantine. They can play it with their roommates, or they can play it with their friends that they still go see in quarantine. You know what I mean? And it's these types of cards, I think, that you might see a spike in that when things start opening back up. So good stuff.
So hopefully you learned something about MTG stocks.
Huge.
Pick up Icon of Ancestry if you don't have it. They're cheap now. And it's just a colorless card for Commander decks of the tribal type that people love. It's bound to be $5 in a year.
Absolutely.
If it dodges one of the 8 million reprints.
Yeah. So my suggestions this week, they're all Commander based, but they're also mana based. They're all pretty cheap too. So I got a $2 limit today. Let's start with the cheaper ones. Basically,
ones. Whoa.
Yeah, we've seen, and I say that because this is more of an archetype than a specific card. Okay. But if you see these types of cards for under $1, it's probably safe to get a play set of them. You know what I mean? Even though you might not ever use a play set of them because they're pretty big in Commander usually only. But that is Mana Rocks. 2-drop Mana Rocks. For whatever reason.
Why are these on your radar right now, Mike?
They've been spiking ridiculously. Like all across, the Boros Signet went up. And granted, it didn't go up huge, but percentage-wise it did. And there's a ton of other Mana Rocks. There's the ones that tap for a colorless mana, and they're sort of like a Painland Mana Rock. You know what I mean? They tap for one of two colors.
For a pain or colorless.
Yes. And one of them in particular, I want to say was the blue-white one that had gone up to like $9.
Wow.
Yeah, it's for an uncommon. This was printed in some set in standard at one point as an uncommon.
Yeah.
You know, which it got me thinking, this is really no different than like any of the other mana rocks that, you know, that tap for specifically these are the ones I'm talking about. The ones that tap for a colorless mana and or pain land ability. Get those. If you can get them for under $1, get a playset of them, because I guarantee it won't be like that for a while.
I'm trying to think of which ones fall into that category.
So,
like I played one in Bantel Rousey.
Talisman of Dominance, Talisman of, like the talismans. Get the talismans. That's what we're thinking of. They were even printed in recently in the Modern Horizons, right? Was it Modern Horizons or something? They were all printed.
That's interesting. Of course, Talisman of Progress was not reprinted.
Oh yeah, of course. That's like $7 now. That's what he just saw. $7. Talisman of Dominance was also one that I think had gone up pretty. Yeah, it's like $6, $5-6. Like there are still some out there that are $2 and or you might be able to find them for $1 or under. If you can, get them. I don't think they're going to be. Yeah. So like Talisman of Creativity is like 79 cents.
That's a Modern Horizons uncommon, and we've obviously preached the gospel of Modern Horizons here, time and again, where it was a limited print run product. I mean, there was a boatload of it out there, but it's not limitless.
But if all of these other talismans that you can buy for under $1 go up in the same way in the future that these have, it's like taking $4 right now
and saving yourself.
Turning it into 15 or 20 later on. You know what I mean? It's a free $10. Like that will almost certainly happen to these cards later on.
That is really what we want to do with this podcast.
Right.
It's not a podcast about making a bunch of money.
Right. It's just, this is a good investment. Don't get caught with your pants down paying
making smart decisions.
$5-6 for an uncommon like this that's used in Commander. You know what I mean? Like get them now. Like there's really not much of a huge difference really between that and any of the other mana rocks besides colors. All it takes is a good commander to come out in those colors. It's going to encourage you to play mana rocks, and those are going to go up too. So it just takes time and more commanders coming out, man. That's it. So if you can find those for under $1, any of the talismans, get them. The other one is sort of a mana rock. It's one of the coolest mana rocks I think I've ever seen. We were fans of this. Brad sent me a picture of this when it was leaked.
Oh yes.
Yeah, but
I know what you're talking about now.
I just noticed I was on what is it? The EDH Rec. I was telling you, I use this site all the time now. I was literally getting lost in the data. I was like, what are the most played cards? What about this deck? What about this archetype? I ran across this card, and apparently it does see a lot of play. And that is, I'm going to forget the card name now. It's the Trilobite. Cryptic Trilobite. So it's a X mana spell. Think of like Walking Ballista. It's a very Walking Ballista-esque card, right?
Yeah.
It's XX in its mana cost. It's a 0/0 and it enters the battlefield.
Is so good.
It enters the battlefield with X/1/1 counters. So much like Hangerback Walker, which is also an X spell, you pay 1, tap it, put a counter on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Much like Walking Ballista,
you can take those counters off.
You can take those counters off at any time, right? As soon as this comes out, you can take the counter off if you need to, right? But this is what it does when you remove a +1/+1 counter. It soul rings you. It gives you 2 mana.
Colorless mana.
Every time you remove a counter. And one of the things that encourages me to buy a playset of these, which is just what I did this week. I just bought a playset of them. I got them for under $2. Like I paid $7 and some odd cents for 4 of them. The cool thing about it is counters decks are not like, they're pretty big in Commander. And this is a colorless card. Like you can run this in any of those counters decks. Right?
No, that mana can only be spent to pay for an activated ability or pay for an ability. So you can't use it to play another creature.
True.
So your deck definitely has to use it. But if you're playing anything that wants to ramp mana or is sort of X-themed or something, you're going to have these abilities.
Well, it's much like what you were talking about with cards that allow you to sink your mana, right?
Yep.
Like, it's you shouldn't play Trilobite, unless you have something to do with it. Like, you know what I mean? Because otherwise it's just sitting there. It's I mean, or maybe you do. Maybe you're just trying to, pull the removal out of your opponent's hand. You know what I mean?
See, now you have me wanting to recommend something.
And what is that?
Unbound Flourishing from
What?
From Modern Horizons.
Don't tell me you got it for that price.
For what price?
That price that I just saw in your...
No. Oh, I just ordered 4 of these cryptic trilobites.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. Dude, Brad got his for 79 cents each. Yeah, definitely get him at that, man. So you paid half what I paid, and I still felt pretty good at like $7. But, yeah. Good deal. So, where did you just order that from for our listeners?
TCGplayer.com.
Yep.
And I didn't find the cheapest seller. I found the seller that had 33 copies. So I could just order my playset.
Yep.
But I've been a big fan of this card since Modern Horizon was printed because this has open-ended synergy. I promise this will be the last card we talk about today.
Wow.
But Unbound Flourishing lets you take your permanent with an X in its mana cost or spell with an X in its mana cost and double it. And then, so whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activate an ability, if that spell's mana cost or ability's activation contains X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. Whenever you cast a permanent with X in its mana cost, double the value of X. So this is a 3 mana green, 2 and a green enchantment from Modern Horizons that says sort of hardened scales. I'm going to play a Walking Blister for 2, but instead of coming in with 3 counters, it's going to come in with 4.
Right. There's a ton of ways to do that in Commander, that hardened scales sort of approach. Yeah. And I think Cryptic Trilobite
plays right into that.
It plays right into it. And by the very least, right, think about this. By the very least, it's basically a hanger back walker. And by basically, I mean, obviously it doesn't have as good of a leave the battlefield effect, but it's still like, it's like an annoying beater. Yeah, and Ozolith, dude.
Oh,
man.
Magic is so cool.
It really is, dude.
Thanks for coming over and hanging out and talking about Magic with me every week.
Dude, I love it, man. That's a highlight of the week.
So you've been streaming all the time. Where can people find you?
They can find me at twitch.tv/Cooley with 3 O's. That's COOOLEY. You can also find me on Twitter. COOOLEY on Twitter.
Nice. I am Brad O'Brien at Zetabase, ZETABASS on the Twitters. I am a twit. Thank you for listening to our podcast as always. If you have any difficulty finding the podcast on your preferred listening platform, let us know. If you found us on YouTube and you want to listen to the audio only stream, happy to help you find it. If you're listening to the audio stream, please go and check out our videos because we have not only Mike and my beautiful faces here for you as we have these conversations.
Beautiful in air quotes.
Beautiful in air quotes. If you want to see the look on Mike's face when I show him some stupid art of a pithing needle that he doesn't really give a crap about.
The look I give before I say, damn.
It looks like he's constipated. But seriously, Andy's been putting out some awesome attacking the meta content, which is great.
We just put up a nice Loris finish the other day with 4 games up with that, went 4-0. So go check that out, man. Check out these busted companions before they change.
We really appreciate all of you that have been listening to us now, some of you for 23 episodes.
Thank you so much.
Spread the podcast,
not the plague.